So you heard from quarterback one of the Bengals. At least we assume if he's going to be active for this game. We now bring in our reporter, one and a half, whatever you and I are at this point. Richard Skinner, Bengals beat writer for Local12.com and the sports page. Skinny, we've heard from Burrow. We've heard from Zach for the last week. They got the extra day. Gut feeling, does he go tomorrow or no?
Gut feeling is no. The extra day doesn't hurt. I mean, you know, when Zach talked to us on Saturday, he's right. It was more than 48 hours until kickoff, and that's a big deal when you're dealing with something like this. But it feels like they keep making contingencies. I think it's a big ask. He wasn't a full participant at any point this week. It was good that he got out there. I think if he didn't get out there at all, you would have chucked this by now. He'll work out probably like he did before the Green Bay preseason game. He'll work out 4 hours before kickoff. Let's see where he's at. I think the bottom line is, though, I mean, this has been literally lingering for 2 months. Even if he says, I'm good, and the trainers go, he's good enough, do you want to risk this again, or do you want to just simply say, let's shut this down for a while till it's 100%? You know, maybe, honestly, the loss by Baltimore on Sunday maybe changes your mind to say, okay, we're still good. You know, even a loss, you're only 2 games out. And here's the thing, in this league, backups win games. Cooper Rush beat the Bengals last year. Gardner Minshew beat Baltimore. I mean, this happens. Trust Jake Browning at this point only because you want the long-term health of Joe Burrow to be 100%.
You led me into my next question, which would be if Burrow does not go, now what? Well, we had the quarterback carousel. You had Will Grier in there for some depth. Yeah. Will Grier is now a New England Patriot. You bring back Reed Sinnett. You bring back A.J. McCarron, dug him up out of the XFL. Now we have a lot of quarterbacks. If Burrow doesn't go, what now?
Yeah, it's still Jake Browning. I mean, he's the only one that really knows the offense. Sinnett knows it enough to go call a play, if you will. But listen, I mean, he's a nice kid who I'm glad it's going to work out, and he might even get a game check out of this because he could technically, if Burrow does not have a good pregame, they'll make him inactive in all likelihood, and Reed Sinnett's going to make a game check. So good for him for that. That's a great win for him to literally answer the phone and go, I'll come to practice on Friday. I'll be on your practice squad. You can elevate me and all those things. It's clearly Jake Browning's show. A.J. McCarron is a long-term situation, in my opinion, just because he doesn't know this offense. He knows Cincinnati. He knows the building. He knows all those things. He doesn't know this offense yet. And you're not going to ask a guy to do that in 2 days. I don't care what Baker Mayfield did last year in Los Angeles. That's a big, big ask. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the A.J. McCarron thing to me makes it seem like they think it's going to be a little bit longer term to maybe ramp A.J. McCarron up to be a backup as we move forward. But it's still so fluid, it's just impossible to predict.
All right, let's talk about the actual game now, not just the quarterback position. This is a Rams team that's not quite the star-studded roster they were in the Super Bowl, still very dangerous. Matt Stafford coming into the week, top 3 in the NFL in passing. They got a guy, Puka Nacua, who I'd never heard of him before. He went to BYU, and now he's breaking NFL records for most receptions through 2 games as a rookie. Take me through this offense. What challenges do you think it poses for the Bengals
defense? Yeah, I mean, it's him and Tutu Atwell. And Tutu Atwell was a second-round pick back in 2021. Didn't play as a rookie. Played a little bit last year at 18 catches. He's got 13 for 198. He's 9th in the NFL in receiving yards. Nacua is number 1 in receptions, number 2 in receiving yards, a 5th-round pick. Talked to Mike Hilton a little bit about this, and he said, you know, some of this is just Sean McVay's so good at scheming guys open, and Matthew Stafford's spinning it as well as he's ever spun it before. We know his arm talent. We know his talent. So those 2 guys have been ridiculous. They've accounted for almost 60% of receptions, 60% of receiving yards. That's unheard of for 2 guys to do this that are really unheralded, and they've been so good on third down. That's the thing. They're second in the NFL in third down offense, converting at 58%. You got to get them out of third manageables. That's easier said than done. The one thing they don't do well is run it. They are only averaging 2.9 yards per rush. This rush defense, which struggled the first 2 weeks, needs to win first and second down, needs to get them in third and longs, and needs to finally get some pressure on the quarterback.
This is something that I think is interesting because the Bengals defense played very well the first week. The second week, Baltimore exposed them a little bit. But this is a matchup I really like for the Bengals going in because you mentioned they don't run the ball that well. They just traded away Cam Akers. Stafford's throwing it well, but I think it's a good matchup and a good chance for this Bengals defense to kind of get their feet back under them and get a little momentum as they head into Tennessee next year.
Yeah, Lou Anarumo told us on Monday that the way that the defense got hit in the run game this last game felt like a body punch, felt like a punch to the liver. And he said those don't feel good because, you know, you take pride in not having that happen, and it hurts. Not like a defensive back getting beat once. It's the whole unit getting pushed around. And so this is a game you can get right. And that's where I think if you can win first and second down, which you should be able to do, you get them in third and longs. It's time for this defensive front to go eat and get some sacks of Matthew Stafford. Because he's not Lamar Jackson, and he's certainly not Deshaun Watson from a mobility standpoint.
Now on the other side of the ball, they got this guy Aaron Donald, who's pretty good, won him a Super Bowl against the Bengals. We won't go over what happened in the joint practices, but I'll say maybe only one helmet for Aaron Donald this time around in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that got ugly.
Now, this defense is good. Again, not as star-studded as it was in the Super Bowl. They don't have the Von Millers. They don't have the Jalen Ramseys. But still, I think this offensive line, which has played better and last week was better, this is going to be the true test because Donald, when we talked to Orlando Brown, they move him around, and he's going to get his at some point.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what you last year went and signed Ted Karras, signed Alex Kappa, and drafted Cordell Wilson to do, was to shore up the interior of that offensive line. I mean, let's face it, the play Aaron Donald made in the Super Bowl literally came on the interior of the line and it wrecked the game. The Bengals probably will win that game if he doesn't come flying through and grab Joe Burrow and spin him around. And it was even before that play. You knew they were going to make changes and improvements. But Alex Kappa was brought here to block guys like that, and that's where in that playoff run last year when he was out, Max Sharping did great against Buffalo. Not so good against Chris Jones. Now, Chris Jones is not Aaron Donald, but he's not too far off. He's a really good player who can wreck games too. So this is where that interior of the offensive line that you signed, spent money on, this is where they earn their stripes this week.
You said last week when we were in the stadium after they lost to Baltimore, this was about as big of a must-win as it can be for Week 3. You still feel like this is a must-win?
Yeah, and just because, again, 0-3 is just a hard hole to dig out of. It's not impossible. It's not, you're not mathematically eliminated. You're not down to even being one more game eliminated. But yeah, to go 0-3 with 2 of those losses being home losses, 2 of those losses prior to what would be tomorrow night being divisional losses, that's a big hole to overcome. And also not knowing the health of your quarterback. So yeah, find a way to win tomorrow night. Hey man, Ryan Finley won a game once, right? I mean, if Ryan Finley can win a game, Jake Browning can win a game.
Nothing against Ryan Finley and his smiling.
Oh yeah, no, it's a lot against Ryan Finley. But yes, it's a lot against Ryan Finley.
I'm trying to be nice here, Skinny. Come on.
All right.
You can win, lose, or draw. You can read Richard Skinner on our website, localtalk.com/sports.